Hi, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds, an adventure in podcasting. Delighted to be talking on this episode with comics creator Alison Sampson. Alison, may I call you Alison? Is that all right?
You may, yeah, and hello everybody as well.
Thank you for jumping on. Thanks for taking some time to talk with me. And I'll mention a couple of titles of yours here at the beginning of the episode, but there are certainly several. These are two in particular that I know I'll be asking about, and that is the adaptation of Sleeping Beauties, excuse me, and Department of Truth. Both of those being really fascinating books.
They are, and those are my two. They're not quite my two most recent projects. I have drawn an issue of Hellboy
Mhm,
since I
mhm.
did that Department of Truth, but I've spent a lot of the summer drawing comic covers, which is a relatively new thing. But those two, in my opinion, have the most significance for me.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
Sleeping Beauties particularly was a huge piece of work. I mean, really, really big piece of work for me.
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite Stephen King novels to come out in the past few years. And then I was really excited to see the graphic novel adaptation. Of course, always the question is, how are they going to do this and what's it going to be like? And it came together really, really nicely.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that because, I've met quite a few people who've read the novel and then see the book, and I think, I think everybody was very concerned to stay true to the story.
Hmm, hmm.
Um, and the way it was done was Rio Ewers, who is a Canadian horror novelist or horror, I keep thinking of as a crime novelist, horror and crime novelist, worked with Owen, who he knew, to cut and I think this must have been the really big job of the project to cut 75% or so of a best-selling novel. How do you do that? I mean, I don't know.
Hmm,
And
hmm.
then he wrote the script based on, this editing process that he had had. And then I took the script and made the script back into a book. And, and I don't have any doubts that kind of doing an adaptation, taking a script and drawing it is only I was going to say half the story. I'm not even sure it's half the story. It's part of the story.
Hmm,
It's a
hmm.
huge job. I had no idea. I mean, I'm not sure what I thought. I didn't really realize how much more demanding an adaptation would be. You only find out when you do it, I guess.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah, so I'll circle back to the adaptation process and maybe a question or two that follows there, but curious about as you're working through this process of putting books together, what comics allow you to do with your storytelling and what it was about this particular medium that sort of connected you.
Well, I mean, for me, it's very, very straightforward. It's comics give structure to arts,
Hmm, hmm,
and I
hmm,
mean, this is something that I think I need. I mean, I like making art, but what I really need when I'm making art is some kind of I need constraints,
hmm,
and sometimes more constraints are better than less constraints. So, for example, I'm not particularly good at doing what I would call just draw the princess,
hmm,
which a lot of comics people are very good at, and it's partly why I haven't done a lot of commissions because kind of I always feel that I want there to be more to the drawing. There's got to be some kind of thing going on,
hmm,
or so and all my covers are like that where I don't think I've ever done a cover that's just drawing the princess. Um, and there's always a whole load of other things going on, and and that has influenced all my stuff. I mean, people generally know this, but I've not been making comics for that long, and certainly not as long as my age might suggest. Perhaps about 10 years,
hmm,
and
hmm,
before that, I was an architect, and that's just the same. Where it's like architecture gives structure to art, a
hmm.
lot more structure actually. So kind of comics are sort of liberating, really, and that's another nice thing. It's the good bits of architecture without all the kind of nightmare of how to make the air conditioning work.
Right,
Well, I mean,
right.
it's got other challenges.
Yeah, no, what do you think your background in architecture helps you bring as an artist in comics?
I mean, kind of quite sometimes quite sort of quite nebulous things. I mean, I think it's in architecture. You start with a blank page, and I'm not. It's made me not terribly afraid of the blank page because kind of I've had a reasonable amount of practice with it. It's like I don't particularly like it. Nobody likes it,
Hmm.
but kind of I have seen a few before, and also I mean, there's I could talk about this for like ages, but also what my particular architecture practice has done, where I worked for nearly all the jobs I've done since my 20s have been for what you would call rock stars in architecture. And what that has taught me is that you can take a risk and it can be very commercial. And that suits me quite well. And that's sort of where I sit in comics, where I'm working in some reasonably. I'm not doing a huge amount of work for Marvel and DC, although I have worked for both. But like I'm working in some reasonably commercial areas, and I would like to think I'm pushing the envelope in those areas. And so doing something interesting and it being commercial is something that I kind of know how to do, if that makes sense. And it's not that is really not everybody's cup of tea. I know, for example, that doing a risky piece of art can really, really work for lots of people. And in my architecture work, I'd be working on site with a ton of people, and there'd be plasterers and there'd be people digging holes and you know cladding experts and surveyors and all sorts of things. And all these people you talk about the project with, about why it looked like that, what you were doing, what you were trying to achieve. And I know that everybody can, many, many, many people can appreciate art, and this is partly why I like making comics to start with, because this is, if there's such a thing as art for the masses, this is it. This is art for everybody. And if I can give, and I think people should never ever underestimate people, not just random people's capacity to enjoy art.
I love that. Yeah.
It's really important to me, that.
Yeah, yeah. When you mention not doing that, it's just a princess sort of style, and your work really carries across genres and shows a lot of what's possible in the medium. So I'm curious about sort of the sweet spot for your creativity, the spot where you're most sort of in the flow of creating.
It's really hard to say. I mean, I've sort of, people started to say I was a horror artist, and could be.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I'm also quite reluctant not to get pigeonholed into that area. I think a lot of
Hmm.
people seem to want to get pigeonholed into that area, but I don't think that's kind of ideal. I don't think that's kind of particularly an ideal way to go, because kind of there are many, many extremely accomplished horror artists who only do that and do it extraordinarily well, and they're generally not the comic artists. I'm talking about people like Tehani Farr, who
Hmm.
is an amazing horror artist. I think she might have done a comic, but she's not done a lot of comics. She does it all the time, incredibly well. I am not her competition.
Hmm.
It's incumbent for me to do a whole range of things. And I'm proud of my range. In fact, I'm really proud of my range. I mean, I just set up my convention table today, and there was an awful lot of girls with swords, but I have done a whole bunch of different things.
Love
But
it.
one thing but I mean, one thing I noticed, I've just, and I can't tell you which thing it is, but I just did a cover for a project, and then I saw all the other covers and the interiors, and I thought, and I had to go back and look at what I'd been sent again. I thought that was a horror story
Hmm.
that I
Hmm.
got sent. I'm sure it was a horror story. I felt it was a horror story. It's a horror story to me, and I kind of did a sort of horror cover, but nobody else did. And I was like, this is really weird. And I think that kind of comes some way to answering your question, which is, even if other people don't, if I think it's kind if I think it's kind of, you know, if there's some kind of emotional thing going on,
Hmm. Hmm.
that's kind of where I want to go. And horror is a lot about that. It's um it's a lot about empathy. for example. In fact, it's mostly about empathy.
Hmm.
Where something dreadful happens, and you're like, it's all about feelings. So,
Hmm.
so for example, in my reading taste, I love a good cry. I love a good tragedy.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I don't love a good tragedy, but somehow I seem to read a lot of this thing, so that must mean something.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so I quite like this place where you're digging into what's happening with people. And I think that is a very much a horror thing, but I think it can go across genres as well. So why is this person doing that? Why do they feel that?
Hmm.
How does this impact upon how the comic looks and feels? And I would find it very difficult to not do, and this comes back to not being able to draw the princess again,
Hmm.
which is kind
Hmm.
of, if you just draw the princess, you're not doing that. So yeah, that's not particular. I'm sort of refusing to answer the question because kind of there isn't really a sweet spot. I have a project which I did quite a while ago with the writer Fred Van Lente, who is the comedy writer. He's funny all the time. I mean, he's
Hmm.
funny in life as well. And we did a project called The Beard. And I'm not a particularly I'm not a particularly funny artist, and I'm not really a particularly funny person. But kind of, I really enjoyed doing this, and he's very good, and we've since pitched. A lot of times past. I can't remember how many years ago we did this thing, but now there's Ahoy, the publisher, around, and this is what they do, and we've just pitched it to Ahoy, and I'm kind of
Nice.
excited about that. And that's not like other things, but it's still about how people feel
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people's emotions. It's probably more a kind of a book about, I was going to say, people's inner lives. I mean,
Hmm.
what Fred says is superpower. He sort of sees superpowers as a manifestation of people's inner lives, and I
Hmm.
quite like that. And so, although it's going to be really stupid, sorry, that's although it is actually, yes, it is going to be really stupid. I mean, I don't know when I'm going to draw it, but kind of, it will be It will be a comedy because it will just be stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
I think.
Well, and that strikes an emotional tone too. That's
Yeah.
very necessary.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, when I tell people about this book, which I'm not actually going to tell you here because it's sort of slightly distracting, but when I tell you people about the log line for the story that we did, they always laugh. And I said to her, it's just like, we've got to do something with this because why not?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I've no idea kind of where that's going to go, when I'm going to draw it, or what I'm going to draw. But kind of, I do appreciate that. I mean, anything that kind of pokes people in. I was going to say pokes people in the feels. That's a terrible phrase, but yeah, anything that does that goes for me.
I like it. I like it. But I have this undercurring motif of sort of um, folks who come on tend to create across a range of materials. And so I really appreciate that, or genres, or whatever it happens to be. So I think that's something that it must appeal to me to as a reader as well.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah.
S- So going back to Sleeping Beauties, curious about that. You mentioned it was a difficult process, so curious about what that's
Yeah.
like to adapt from one form to another.
Well, the way it worked was I was booked onto the job, and then a whole load of time passed where I think I was both doing something else and they were spending a lot of time, like a lot of time developing the script. And when I mean a lot of time, I mean years.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
which is absolutely fair enough. If you've got a best-selling novel, you don't mess with it lightly. And also, I don't know. I have no idea who was doing what in that time. Anyway, after a period of time, I became free, and there was a script.
Hmm.
And then, so I got this script, and I started to draw it pretty faithfully, which was sort of what I wanted. I When I start with a script, I generally want to follow what the writer has asked for because kind of that's the point, or it's sort
Hmm.
of the point.
Hmm.
And then after a while, I kind of not for one, a not very long while, maybe after sort of in the middle of the first issue or towards the end of the first issue, I thought actually, this is really difficult. Some of this is really difficult. Where I spent absolutely age there was one panel. It's just one panel actually, where there was a whole really long description of what was happening, and I got really tied up with how to make this room work,
Mm,
where there was, there was a whole lot of things in the room, and then there was events in the room, and then I wanted to, have light coming in from one direction, and and I wanted every single panel to be from a different angle, and where people were sitting and what was behind them, and it became an absolute, and it was kind of it was kind of impossible, where the script was really loaded up with like things,
mhm,
and
mhm,
like it kind of realized that you couldn't do this. You could only make the whole thing. It was like it was like there was a whole list of descriptions of things on the fridge magnets on the
mhm,
fridge in the kitchen, and you could only make it work if you sat the person right in front of the fridge, if that
mhm,
makes sense.
mhm,
I was absolutely, and I didn't want to do that. It's kind of, it absolutely. So you have to kind of think of something else to put the fridge right at the front and the person right at the back,
mhm.
or something. And I just thought, oh God, I can't go through the whole book like this. This is, firstly, it's going to take ages. Secondly, I don't know why I'm doing this, because yeah, the fridge magnets are important and the person sitting at the table is important, but they do not need to be in the same panel.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, and so that's why there's quite a lot more panels in Sleeping Beauties than I think. It was written to be 5 panels a page, roughly. It was sometimes 6, sometimes 4, but there's kind of more panels than that. And that is because some of the panel descriptions were loaded up with stuff that I thought was better split out.
Mhm,
Or
mhm.
I won't say it was over edited. I don't think that's right. I think it was. I think they got to a point with it, and then they said that'll do, kind of thing, which is
Yeah,
sort of fine, because
yeah,
when you've done a whole load of other stuff, really the fact the script at all is kind of amazing.
yeah, yeah. And I like the multiple panel aspect of it, and there's a sort of pacing that brings, almost
Yeah,
as its own elliptical sort of uh, tension building
yeah.
approach.
I think of it as unflattening. I
Hmm.
think that, when you have an event on a page, you have say a page of script, and there's an event on the page, and if you're not careful and you present and say it's described in 4 panels, and you look at that and you think which is the most important panel, and how should I lay this out,
Hmm.
and then you think, well, that's that, but the beginning's important. There's actually a really good example of this is the one where Evie opens her mouth and all the moths come out and go over Angel, and then it's kind of disgusting, and then there's kind of, it sort of ends, and this is all happens on one page. And I think it was scripted, like she opens her mouth, they go on Angel, there's a bit of conversation, then it kind of stops or something. And I thought, actually, if this actually happened, this is just dreadful. you know this is really, firstly, it's weird, and secondly, it's really nasty. I mean, it's one of the things I am most afraid of, is insects going all over me. When I was very little, I had ants go all over me, and they stung me, and it was just, it was one of the worst experience, genuinely one of the worst experiences in my life. It wasn't actually that terrible. I thought it was, and
Hmm.
so comes back to what I said before. You sort of get into the head of the person who is there, and this thing, even if it only was momentary, you know, but the person who's experiencing it will go on forever.
Hmm. Hmm.
It
Hmm.
will be really long. It'll be like, oh my God, moths on my face, moths in my mouth, moths everywhere. I'm dying. Am I suffocating? What is? Get them off. And so I think that second panel, I kind of split it. I had a lot of little panels where it was sort of moth, just, ugh. And then it kind of stopped. And it's stuff like that. It's a sort of unflattening of the moment, where I could have done it in one panel, but it would be very different. It would feel really different,
Yeah.
where it would be
Yeah.
like, yeah, some moths went on her.
So it goes.
They go, yeah, moths on her, no problem. Or moths on her, that happened. And it's like, no, no, that's and this is the whole difference in the story we're telling. It's like moths went on her. It's like, no, that's awful.
Mhm.
That's really awful. She feels dreadful. And therefore and what actually happens in the story, of course, the moths go on her and she sort of, I don't know, has some kind of reevaluation of what's happening. And
Mhm.
it has meaning. But for it to have meaning, it has to have an effect. And for it to have an effect, you actually have to be able to see that. And like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's quite a lot of that in Sleeping Beauties.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll also mention I've become a Force ghost. You're like the third guest that I've had where I've just sort of gone on all purple like this.
Yeah,
Uh,
I really like it. I wasn't
Thank you.
sure if you could do that, but I do like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
In
Thank
fact,
you.
I'm actually really jealous.
Oh, okay. Well, if I figure out how it happened, I will
Can
be
I
glad
be
to
purple
share.
as well? If you figure out how to do it, yeah, very happy to be purple. Although I will, I'll take blue or pink, maybe
Yes.
whatever
Yeah.
you have.
Sounds great. Sounds
Anyway,
great.
so where were we? So
Well,
slightly, I was trying not to say anything about the purpleness, but I do like it.
oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
And
Um,
the pink glow also. You have a kind of pink beard.
oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. I'm being transformed as we speak. So I was going to ask about what's next creatively and your creative vision that you, of course, can talk about. But before I do that, I wanted to also give attention to Department of Truth because it's a terrifying story. It's
Yeah.
a visually magnificent story. Curious about what that's been like for you to work on.
Well, I just did a part of it. The main part, or most of it, as everyone knows, it is drawn and painted by Martin Simmons, who is a
Mm-hmm.
friend here in the UK. And firstly, I am tremendously grateful to Martin's work, or Martin and his work, for I feel that all of that has been just incredibly liberating, and I think other comic artists would say that there are. It's not everybody, but there are certain other comic artists I think who've done quite well out of Martin doing what he's done, and it's opened the door for other people to make more interesting things. For example, didn't get asked to do any covers before I did one for Martin, and he's done all sorts of covers, and largely nobody's going to quite go where he goes,
Mm-hmm.
but it has opened the door to be able to do interesting covers. It, you know, it's groundbreaking, really. I think,
Mm-hmm.
and so being a part of this book is great. It's really interesting. I like how James works. I mean, the book's about the power of ideas, and he has something in his writing where and I don't know how this works because I haven't looked at lots. If I had a few scripts to look at, I would be like, oh, this is how he does it. But there's something in his writing where he clearly gets the best out of the artists he's working with, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sure how he does that, but he does. Which is, he wins these prizes and he deserves them because he's doing something which I can't quite get my finger on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's very enjoyable work to do. I mean, like as ever, I got to draw some really weird stuff. I don't think I know anyone else who is asked to draw quite as much sex as I get asked to draw, and I'm not entirely sure why I get asked. Going back to genres and stuff, I think I've got
Mm-hmm.
range. I, I
Absolutely.
I think I've probably got range, and but no, a whole lot of sexy stuff, and so I just enjoy doing it. I like the kind of the combination of constraints and freedom that his script offers. It's there's something in there about constraints and freedom. Like there are absolutely things he wants, and you will do them, but there's enough space. There's enough generosity of space in the script that you can do it in an interesting way, and it will work.
Mm,
And
great.
that's kind of what's expected of you because he knows what you're going. I won't say he knows what you're going to do before you do it, because I certainly had no idea what I was going to do on Department of Truth before I did it. But like or maybe I did, I don't know. I don't think I did. I think I was part of the reason I liked doing it was because it was um it was like opening a sort of door to freedom for me, where
Mm,
it was like, what are you, just draw something. And I'm going to apparently, I don't know when I'm going to do this. I mean, it might have been now, but it's not. I can't remember how long I've been waiting for the script. Maybe since the summer. It's not very long, really, but I'm supposed to be drawing another couple of issues of it.
Oh,
Because
wonderful.
when I finished doing it, I said I really enjoyed doing this, and it looked really good. So we're all very happy with that. And I said I really enjoyed doing this. Could I do some more? Could I draw the Red Lady origin story? Who is she? Where did she come from? How did she get to this place? And then after a whole load of time passed, half a year passed, and then they came back and said, "Would you like to draw some more Department of Truth?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm doing that, and I've got a bunch of covers that I've done. I've got how many have I got on deck? Two. Two. I've got two I'm currently doing, and two for Department of Truth. I need to do sharpish because I think if I do those covers, my script might come a bit more quickly. And then I've got what I'm really meant to be doing. That's what I've been put, and it's been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back because I keep doing something else. Is I have an image series I'm supposed to be drawing called The Blue Tarantula, which was written by J.H. Williams
Hmm, hmm.
and Scott Johnson. And this is a sort of political sci-fi book. It's not super futuristic sci-fi. It's just sort of near future sort of. I was going to say technocracy. Really,
Hmm,
it,
hmm.
it's more. It's Lazarus meets Promethea, so it's a kind of political action story with a good dose of what the heck was that?
Nice. Talk about a
Well,
tagline. I like that.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's J.H. Williams. It's going to be what it's going to be.
Hmm, hmm.
There is no. When I said I have range, it is expected of me. If you think I have range now, just wait.
Wonderful,
Um,
wonderful.
this is there's going. I mean, like, there's a lot, and it goes right. I mean, it will be, well, yeah. No, if you think I've got range now, just wait. So yeah, that's I have started it, but kind of I was very conscious, particularly with, and this kind of came with Sleeping Beauties. Sleeping Beauties was the second and third book, respectively, that I did not get to do the cover. I didn't get to do. I did a cover for Hit Girl,
Mm,
but it was really mine. It was well back in the series. I didn't get to do any covers for Sleeping Beauties, and this is really bad. When you don't do covers for your own work, you have the stuff on your table at conventions, and like it's not your work.
mm, mhm, mhm,
The cover artist is very sort of important, and if you don't draw the cover to your own book, what happens is you've kind of got disappointment built in.
mhm,
Where people I like this book, and then you open it and they're like, oh, not so much. That's kind of rubbish, actually, in my opinion. And so I don't want that to happen again. I want to
mm,
do the covers to my own books, and in order to do the covers, and this is really important, because believe me, if you don't do the covers to your own books, you're kind of, to some extent, nobody knows you've done the book.
mhm,
Um, so it's incumbent on me to do something about that. And the only way I'm going to get asked to do covers to my own books is if people think I can do covers to
mm,
start with,
mhm.
and hence a summer of covers. Um, it's this is, they're interesting to do, but this is to an end. I want to be able to be allowed to do the covers to my own work. I was kind of devastated. Actually, doesn't even get there. You do all this work, and then everyone, then they use somebody else's work to sell it, and it's like, well, that's not exactly a vote of confidence, is it?
Right, right.
Um, so yeah, so covers. Um, but like, I need to get back to the sequentials, not least because I mean, I miss it, um, and I like the problem solving aspects of it, and I'm very very much looking forward to just immersing myself in layouts. I've got to, as I say, I was telling you earlier, I've got a big convention, MCM London, this
Hmm.
weekend, and then Thought Bubble is in 2 weeks' time. And after Thought Bubble, I'm looking forward to locking myself in my house until like March or April and sitting down with my layouts and my sequentials. And that's, but I think all comic artists like that, genuinely like all that kind of thing. The pandemic was a boom for us. We were like, oh, we don't, it's a good excuse not to leave the house. We like that. So yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to a break from, I don't know, particularly from conventions. I do, they're kind of fine, but kind of three big ones in a month is a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Wishing you some time of creative restoration and
Yeah,
hibernation.
I wouldn't mind actually just kind of asleep. I'm looking for, because not only is these conventions, but like the work does not stop. The
Hmm.
deadlines do not go away for this stuff, and they just have to be worked around,
Hmm.
and that's fine. But kind of, I'm. How can I put this? I need 8 hours sleep per night. I
It's
need to
very
find my sleep.
helpful.
I need my sleep. Yeah. The way I see it, you have to live to fight another day.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, looking forward to, I don't want to say the fight to come, but the work to come, certainly.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. And when I re-emerge from my house, hopefully, I mean, I've no idea when we'll announce it. What I want is, because how can I put this? I can't remember what it is. Oh yeah, because Image isn't doing reprints, or some not reprints. They aren't doing second printings. So
Hmm.
what you have
Hmm.
to do is you have to get the order number right first time
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
comic shop owners. And in order to do that, what I want to do is give them quite a lot of comic. I
Hmm.
don't, when it's announced, I want at least 5 issues on deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can do as well as we can try as well as we can with our first issue to get people to understand what it is and find their market and all of that. So I want quite a lot done when we announce it, and and that's on me, really.
Well, I know
Yeah.
that you are going to deliver as you always do, and as you said,
I,
you have
I, I,
wonderful
I,
range.
I hope so, but I have no idea what it's gonna. I mean, it's gonna look. We'll put it like this: J.H. Williams is an artist. His work is well known. Do you think he's going to let me do anything less than the absolute best? He's not. So kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. My work is well and truly cut out in a good
Well,
way. I
yeah,
like this. I like having my work cut out. I like a nice project, but boy, it's going to be a project.
yeah, yeah. Well, and looking forward to enjoying that on the reading side as well.
Oh, it's going to be great. I mean, I've got all the script and I've read all the script, and yeah, it's great actually. Very satisfying.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Allison, thank you so much for a wonderful talk. Anything that we've missed that you want to make sure to tag in as we're closing?
No. I mean, I think by the time this gets out, it will be, I will have done my convention tomorrow, so there's no point saying any more about that. Um, yeah, no, I think, as I say, look out for my next work. It will be from Image Comics. It will be likely Department of Truth gets out of the door before the Blue Tarantula does.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
when the Blue Tarantula does get out of the door, I hope people check it out. I mean, it's been quite a long time since I've done a creator owned book. I mean, all my work for quite a bit actually has been licensed.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm ready to. I'm really, really ready to do a creator owned book again. It's time, and so I hope people will check it out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you again, and I'm glad to talk anytime, and looking forward to seeing these books come to be and hit the shelf, and curious to see what is to come.
Thank you very much for having me. Cheers.
Cheers to you.